Rickety Bridge is the new featured location in Marvel Snap, showing up in 40% of games. It is a spicy one. It's here for 2 days, 4th to the 5th of January. After each turn, if there is more than one card here, destroy them. If this video is helpful, please do give it a like. Squirrel Girl is an example of a card you could play on turn 5. All it's going to take is a simple squirrel to kill everything in that location. If your opponent has even just one card there, it is going to kill it, unless they have an armor, which is going to be one of the key meta cards we are going to talk about. Deadpool should be very good indeed with Rickety Bridge. You can play Nova and Deadpool on turn 2. Nova, if you play it first, is then going to buff your Deadpool. Deadpool is going to come back into your hand at 4 points already. On turn 3, you can then play Forge into Deadpool, and then your Deadpool suddenly 12 points, and it's only turn 4. Then it can get much, much bigger. Nova, as mentioned, you've got the Hood is going to be a great card as well. You can just play the -2 into the Rickety Bridge, and the key meta card, or Angel, let's not forget about Angel, the thinning card of dreams, potentially for the next couple days. Very easy to overlook Angel, the best thinning card in the game if you can thin it from your deck, and with Rickety Bridge you can certainly do that. Armor, the main meta card. The meta is going to be absolutely dominated by armor, but I do think you can get a pretty big edge by not going for just a normal deck and putting an armor in, but actually building a deck with cards like Mr. Fantastic and Claw, putting stats into the Rickety Bridge location, and then on turn 6 you might want to hit them with an Enchantress on their armor, meaning that every card in that location is going to die, and the only points left there are going to be points that you've got from ongoing abilities. So armor, the obvious card that you can be putting into your deck, but don't be afraid to tech in some Enchantresses to really mess up your opponent. Colossus is the other powerhouse card. There's going to be a lot of fun things you can do with Colossus because it can't be destroyed, moved, or have its power reduced. So if you've got a Colossus in Rickety Bridge, your opponent tries playing any card that's not armor, their cards aren't going to be destroyed, and Colossus is going to be the last man standing. You can hit Colossus with a Hulkbuster. You can hit Colossus with a Forge. You can hit Colossus with Spectrum and go for an absolute pile driver into the Rickety Bridge and just, you know, dominating the bridge. It's like the troll under the bridge, not letting anyone pass. That's certainly a deck I'm going to be testing out. Spectrum, as mentioned. Quake, the spiciest of cards. We mentioned Quake in the hot location that came the previous weekend. Quake is a pretty terrible card usually. If this is the middle location, swap the positions of each location. You could play Quake on turn 6, and your opponent might have a whole, well, just one card in Rickety Bridge, but then you swap Rickety Bridge to elsewhere, and all your opponents and your own are going to die. But then if you've got a card like Mr. Fantastic in the middle, those 2 points might just be going into the Rickety Bridge and winning that location on its own. I think Quake is the spiciest of cards possible to build the deck around this next couple of days. We've got Daredevil. Daredevil comboing well with Spider-Man, but particularly Professor X. Professor X, similar to Armor, stopping cards from being destroyed, so it's going to be a good way to win that Rickety Bridge location. Daredevil going to be giving you that information on turn number 5 to help you out, of course. Up next, Mr. Fantastic. We've got Claw as well. Both these cards putting points into the Rickety Bridge location without having to commit any cards there. As mentioned, you might want to come through with an Enchantress on turn number 6 to remove your opponent's armor. Also, you've got Omega Red. Omega Red, I think, is one of the spiciest decks you can go for. Doing a similar thing, putting points into both locations if you're 10 points ahead. Now, Omega Red also, bear in mind, does synergize with the new card Zabu, which I'm sure many of you are going to be wanting to experiment with further during the course of Rickety Bridge. So you might want to consider going Goose, Zabu, Omega Red. That's going to be 3 cards that aren't that many points in that location, but if you can try and get more points in there and get that Omega Red value, maybe you Spider-Man the Goose Lane on 5. If your Omega Red can go through somehow, you're going to be laughing to the bank. Warpath could also be decent if you're leaving Rickety Bridge empty, because then he's getting plus 4 points, and he's going to be 9 points for 5, which is not bad at all. Onslaught as another option. Onslaught could synergize pretty well with all of these cards, the Warpath, the Omega Red, the Claw, and the Mr. Fantastic. So it could be a nice day to play an Onslaught deck. Do bear in mind there could be quite a lot of Enchantresses around, though, because of the popularity of Zabu being the new card. So maybe it's not the greatest of ideas, but it's something that I had to mention. Captain Marvel is going to be an interesting one to see exactly how she interacts. My understanding of how Rickety Bridge is going to interact is the locations are going to reveal themselves and trigger. So Rickety Bridge is going to trigger itself and any card gets destroyed there if there's multiple, but then Captain Marvel could still move into Rickety Bridge. So I think she's going to be a really solid option indeed. Particularly bear in mind you can buff her up with cards like Shuri as well. Null, if you have him, Let's be honest, no one does. He's buffing up by the power of any card that's destroyed. So you could go for a Quake on turn 5, kill a whole bunch of cards, and then maybe Null on turn 6 to secure that location. Scarlet Witch, replace this location with a random new one. Storm is probably a better approach to the Rickety Bridge because people are going to be avoiding it. They're maybe just going to have all sorts of things like Colossus they're going to be trying to set up. So I think Storm's a really good option. Juggernaut as well, comboing with Storm, is also particularly good because you can bump your opponent's cards into Rickety Bridge, meaning that cards like Jessica Jones, which they wanted to survive, could get a premature death. That is the end of the Rickety Bridge cards. Sorry for no videos on decks on this particular guide. It's been a very busy time on Marvel Snap. I streamed for 11 hours today. There's also news of a balance patch just around the corner, but these are my favourite cards for Rickety Bridge. Nice and speedy one. Again, if you want more tips on your decks, come check out my Twitch stream and don't be afraid to ask in the chat. We've also got a Discord below for some Marvel Snap deck discussion and all those kinds of things. So thanks so much for watching. Like it if it was helpful. Comment down below if there's any cards you think I missed, any decks you're particularly looking forward to. Thanks so much for watching. See you on the next one.